Hi, I'm Mina.
And I'm Yules.
Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed.
Welcome to the deep dive. There's just this relentless flood of information coming at us every day. Scientific breakthroughs, complex global politics, market shifts. It's a lot.
It really is. And that's what we try to do here for you, the listener. We sift through that stack, try to pull out the crucial bits, the surprising connections across science, tech, diplomacy, finance.
Exactly. Connect the dots, give some context, maybe find some balanced viewpoints and insights you can actually use.
They make sense of the noise, hopefully.
Yeah. And today, well, the scope is pretty huge. We're going from the really abstract, like what even is consciousness, maybe quantum stuff,
All the way to the very real fragility of, say, global supply chains or the immediate fallout from political decisions. It's a big pile of sources.
So let's just dive right in. Segment 1. We're calling this the quantum mind and hidden health, starting really out there, scientifically speaking.
Yeah, definitely at the edge. Some of the sources are looking into this concept of quantum holographic consciousness. It's a pretty wild idea.
Okay, quantum hologram. Break that down.
Right.
What does that mean for consciousness, not just in the brain?
Right, that's the core idea. Instead of consciousness being just, chemistry fizzing inside our skulls, this theory suggests it might be more like a quantum hologram, distributed across a field that interacts with reality.
Wow. Okay, so that immediately clashes with the sort of standard Western idea, right? That I am just locked inside this head.
Pretty much. Think about a regular hologram plate. If you smash it, right, each little piece still holds the whole picture, just fuzzier.
Right, yeah.
So applying that model to the mind, you get this idea of non-local consciousness. It means information, maybe the self itself, isn't necessarily stuck in one place.
So it could, stretch across space? Even time?
That's the implication, yeah. It's extraordinary. It links up with concepts like quantum entanglement.
Entanglement.
Yeah.
Where particles are linked no matter how far apart. They influence each other instantly.
Exactly. So the theory goes maybe the brain isn't generating consciousness, but it's more like an interface, a receiver.
A tuner. Picking up signals from some universal quantum field.
Something like that. Using these entanglement mechanisms, it would sort of align with some very old philosophical ideas, the ones that see human separation as maybe an illusion.
Okay, that's a massive shift. If consciousness isn't just produced by the brain, but received, it changes how we might think about, deep meditation shared experiences.
Yeah.
Makes them potentially physics, not just metaphysics.
It reframes the whole conversation. It's still very theoretical, of course, but deeply provocative.
Absolutely. And staying with weird physics, we're also seeing discoveries about matter itself behaving strangely, new states of matter.
Yeah, equally mind-bending. Physicists have found these things they're calling rotating crystals.
Rotating crystals. Don't crystals normally just stretch or compress? Why is rotation a big deal?
Well, it's really unusual for solids. Usually the molecules just shift position. But in these materials, the fundamental units actually twist. They exhibit chirality, rotational energy. It's more dynamic, almost like, well, not living, but behaving in a way we associate more with complex systems.
So they twist instead of just squashing.
Right. And controlling that twist, that rotation, could be huge for material science. Think about storing or transmitting energy or information in totally new ways. It could be revolutionary for things like quantum computing components, faster, more efficient architectures.
So we're not just finding new stuff, we're finding out solids can behave in fundamentally new ways. And there's similar weirdness happening in super thin materials too.
That leads us to these quantum tricks in 2D materials, things like graphene or boraphene, just a single layer of atoms thick.
Right.
Researchers found these materials can actually self-form tiny cavities, little pockets, basically.
They just make holes in themselves.
Yeah.
Spontaneously.
Kind of, yeah. And the amazing part is, these cavities act like traps. They can hold photons, light particles, or electrons without needing any external mirrors or etching like we usually do in labs.
So they build their own microscopic traps,
Yeah.
creating like artificial atoms.
You got it. Artificial atoms that can store quantum information. Being able to build this functionality right into the material itself at the atomic level, it's a massive deal for optoelectronics devices using light and electricity, and again, for making quantum computing more stable and scalable.
The pace is just incredible. Okay, let's pivot. From quantum strangeness to health breakthroughs. Applying this kind of microscopic focus to diagnostics, big news on multiple sclerosis, or MS.
Yes, this is potentially huge for people with MS research. I think it was from the University of California, San Francisco, UCSF. They found that MS causes detectable brain damage years before symptoms show up.
Years before, wow. MS is the autoimmune one, right? Attacks the nerve coating. Mostly women, often younger.
That's right. It attacks the myelin sheath, the protective layer around nerve fibers. And typically, women aged 20 to 50 are most affected. Finding damage before symptoms like vision problems or numbness appear is key.
So what are they actually detecting? What are the signals?
They found specific early biomarkers in blood tests. Two main ones, interleukin-3, or IL-3, and myelin oligodendrocyte glycoprotein, or MOG.
Okay, IL-3, that's an immune signal, right? Inflammation.
Exactly. IL-3 is a cytokine. It signals immune activity. Seeing high levels suggests inflammation is kicking off. And MOG, well, that's a protein that's part of the myelin sheath.
So if you see May-rub floating around in the blood, it means the myelin is actually being damaged, starting to break down.
Precisely. So you've got the inflammation signal, IL-3, and the damage marker, MOG. Together, it's a powerful early warning.
Which means you can potentially treat it proactively, before the serious nerve damage happens.
That's the hope. Shifting from managing symptoms after the fact to maybe mitigating or even stopping the disease progression much, much earlier, a huge step for neurological care.
That's fantastic news. And staying with diagnostics, something maybe more everyday but just as important, blood pressure testing. There's a new approach.
Yes, and it's about inclusivity. A big study, over 33,000 people, I think at the University of Exeter in the UK, found a real problem. Standard arm cuff readings, they're often inaccurate.
Inaccurate? How inaccurate? And for who?
For a lot of people, actually, especially patients with conditions like obesity or certain vascular issues. The study suggested maybe up to 1 in 3 adults might get inaccurate readings from the arm cuff.
1 in 3, that could lead to serious misdiagnosis of high blood pressure. What's the fix?
It's actually quite clever. They looked at using ankle blood pressure readings instead, or maybe in addition.
The ankle. Why the ankle?
Well, for some people, especially if there's a lot of tissue on the upper arm or specific artery conditions, the ankle reading might actually be closer to their central aortic, the pressure near the heart. The arm cuff can get compressed incorrectly.
So you take the ankle reading, maybe combine it with an algorithm?
Yeah, they developed an advanced algorithm and an online calculator. It helps give a more accurate picture, especially for those patients where the arm reading might be misleading.
That seems like a simple, elegant solution to a really widespread problem, making sure the basics are right for everyone.
Exactly. Better data means better management of hypertension, especially for those who might be at higher risk anyway.
Okay, from fixing diagnostics to maybe preventing problems. Let's talk diet. Specifically, ultra-processed foods, UPFs. The research linking them to cognitive issues seems to be growing.
It really is. And it's not just about weight. The research highlights a worrying connection. High consumption of UPF seems to interfere with the brain signals that control appetite and feeling full. Satiety.
Interferes how? Like jamming the signal?
Kind of. These foods, high in refined sugars, fats, artificial stuff, they seem to mess with the body's hormones like ghrelin and leptin, the hunger and fullness hormones, might lead to leptin resistance.
Okay, so your body doesn't get the stop eating message properly?
Right. But it's also about the brain's reward system. These foods trigger a big dopamine hit.
The pleasure chemical.
Yeah. So you get this neurochemical craving that basically overrides the natural signals telling you you've had enough or that maybe you need actual nutrients. It conditions the brain to want that food regardless of need.
So the UPFs are basically hacking our brain's reward and hunger pathways.
That's a pretty good way to put it, yeah. And there are links not just to obesity, but also potentially to cognitive decline, anxiety, depression. It's a growing area of concern.
Definitely something to watch. And sticking with food safety, but maybe less appealing.
Yeah.
There's a concern about H5N1, the avian flu virus, in raw milk cheese. I thought aging was supposed to kill that stuff off.
Well, that's the standard thinking, and there is a 60-day aging rule from the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, for raw milk cheeses precisely for safety. But a study from Cornell University found something alarming.
What did they find?
They found that the H5N1 virus can survive in raw milk cheese for much longer than 60 days, up to 6 months in some cases.
6 months. Wow, does it depend on the type of cheese?
It seems to. It comes down to the pH level, the acidity. Cheeses that get really acidic, like below pH 4.6, think traditional feta, maybe some cheddars, those seem to inactivate the virus pretty quickly.
Okay.
But softer, less acidic cheeses, the ones with higher pH levels, maybe between 6.0 and 6.6, the virus remained infectious for the whole 6-month test period in those.
Right, so things like brie or camembert maybe.
Yep.
It's made with raw milk.
Potentially, yeah. Those types often have higher pH, so it raises a real public health flag, especially with recent H5N1 cases in humans linked to dairy cows. It means that 60-day rule might not be enough for certain types of raw milk cheese. Consumers need to be aware.
That's crucial detail. The type of cheese really matters. Okay, let's shift gears. From physical vulnerabilities, nerves, diet, cheese, to the digital world.
Oh.
Segment 2, the digital ecosystem shakeup. AI, vulnerability, and identity.
And the dominant theme here is just speed and scale, especially with artificial intelligence, AI. Meta, Facebook's parent company, is seeing just explosive growth with its Meta AI mobile app.
This is driven by that new video feed they launched, Vibes.
Exactly. They launched Vibes, which is basically an AI-generated short video feed, and boom, downloads went through the roof.
How fast are we talking?
The numbers are pretty wild. Daily active users went from around 775,000 up to 2.7 million in just 4 weeks. That's like 300,000 new installs every day.
Whoa. So they're really pushing hard against TikTok and maybe trying to preempt things like OpenAI's Sora video generator?
Absolutely. It's an aggressive play to own that short-form video space, flooding it with AI-driven personalized content to keep users scrolling. It really shows how central AI is becoming to user engagement now.
And the tools to make this stuff are getting easier to access too, right? Anthropic and Claude.
Yeah, Anthropic, the company behind the Claude language model, they're known for focusing a lot on safety. They've launched the Claude Code web platform.
Making it easier for developers.
Much easier. Developers can now use Claude's AI coding abilities right in their web browser. No need for complicated local setups or specific software environments.
So it lowers the barrier to entry. More people can play with these powerful AI coding tools.
Significantly. It makes advanced AI coding help instantly available to way more software engineers, innovators, pretty much anyone with a browser.
Okay, so we've got this massive growth in AI content, easier tools for development, but it all relies on this huge digital infrastructure. And that infrastructure can be pretty fragile, as we saw with Amazon Web Services, AWS.
Oh yeah, that global AWS outage was a huge wake-up call. Suddenly, things people rely on every minute, Alexa, Snapchat, games like Fortnite, payment apps like Venmo, they just stopped working.
Because they all run on AWS servers.
Exactly. It showed how deeply interconnected everything is and how reliant we are on a few giant US tech companies providing that backbone. When one piece fails, the ripples are enormous.
The economic cost must have been staggering.
Immediate and vast. Just in the UK, initial reports suggested the disruption exposed something like 1.7 billion of economic activity. It wasn't just inconvenient, it was a serious financial hit and sparked a big debate about the resilience of the cloud. You know, do we need more redundancy, less centralization?
Definitely questions we need to ask. Meanwhile, other platforms are rethinking how they interact with developers. X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, is changing its API pricing.
They are. They're testing a pay-per-use model for their API, Application Programming Interface. This is a big shift from their old system, which was often a very expensive flat-rate fee.
Which priced out smaller developers or researchers, right?
Totally. So this new model is more like how cloud services like AWS or Google Cloud work. You only pay for what you actually use. The hope is it'll encourage more people to build things using X's data and tools. Again, revitalize that developer community.
Makes sense. But as this digital world expands, so do the threats. Especially to our identity, our likeness, YouTube stepping in there.
Yes, this is a big one. YouTube has rolled out its likeness detection technology. This is specifically to combat AI-generated deepfakes.
So creators can find videos where AI has cloned their face or voice without permission.
Exactly. Musicians, actors, influencers, anyone whose likeness is their brand, they can now request YouTube to take down unauthorized synthetic content that mimics them. It uses AI to find the fakes. It's a really important step for protecting intellectual property and, personal identity in the age of generative AI.
Definitely needed. But the threats aren't just from deepfakes. State-sponsored attacks are still a major concern. Apple issued another warning.
They did. A serious security alert went out to an exploit developer, someone who finds software vulnerabilities. Apple warned him his iPhone was likely targeted by government-sponsored spyware.
Did they say which government?
No, Apple typically doesn't name the specific state actor, but it immediately brings to mind sophisticated tools like Pegasus spyware, which we know has been used by governments against journalists, activists, political opponents around the world.
So it's an ongoing battle between tech companies trying to secure devices and state actors trying to break in.
A very high-stakes, continuous battle, yes. Apple's policy of notifying targets is crucial for transparency, at least.
And finally, in the AI space, that big debate. Is it going to save us or kill us? Or maybe something in between. There was a public clash.
Yeah, it highlights the tension. Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, again, the company focused on AI safety. He had to publicly defend that focus.
Against who?
Against accusations of fear-mongering. These came from some influential figures from the former Trump administration, specifically David Sachs and Sriram Krishnan, who were involved in AI policy.
So they think talking about risks is holding back progress.
That seemed to be the implication. But Amodei pushed back hard, saying that discussing potential catastrophic risks isn't about spreading fear. It's actually essential for building these powerful systems responsibly. You have to anticipate and mitigate dangers.
Right. Innovation versus caution. That's the balancing act.
And it's a debate that's only going to get louder.
Okay, let's shift from the digital battleground to the physical one. Segment 3, geopolitical flashpoints and fragile truces. Starting in the Middle East, where the situation in Gaza remains incredibly volatile.
Extremely fragile. The U.S. is putting a lot of diplomatic muscle into just holding the current ceasefire together. We saw U.S. envoys, including Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, flying to Israel for talks with Prime Minister Netanyahu.
What was the specific aim of those talks? Just shore up the truce?
That was part one, yeah. Get stronger guarantees that both sides would stick to the agreement. But they were also trying to lay the groundwork for maybe a more comprehensive deal, later prisoner exchanges, longer-term security arrangements. It's very delicate, step-by-step diplomacy.
But the truce was violated almost immediately, wasn't it?
Tragically, yes. Israel launched strikes. Reports said over 40 Palestinians were killed. Israel claimed Hamas violated the truce first. Hamas denied it. It shows just how unstable things are.
And then President Trump weighed in with a pretty strong warning.
Very strong. He stated publicly that if it's determined Hamas violated the agreement, the U.S. position would be to move to eradicate Hamas. That obviously raises the stakes incredibly high for everyone involved.
Amidst all this, the sheer scale of the destruction is hard to grasp. The UN's trying to clean up.
The numbers are almost unbelievable. The United Nations estimates they need to clear somewhere between 55 and 60 million tons of debris just to start restoring basic services.
60 million tons. How much is that?
One comparison I saw was it's roughly the weight of every single car sold in the U.S. over the last 3 years. Just rubble. Clearing that is the absolute first step before you can even think about fixing water pipes, power lines, hospitals, schools.
Just devastating.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting focus to Eastern Europe. The planned summit between President Trump and Russian President Putin seems to be off.
That's right. The Trump-Putin summit that was potentially going to happen in Budapest, Hungary, is now officially on hold. Some reports say canceled.
Even though logistics were being arranged.
Yeah.
Bulgaria offering an air corridor for Putin.
Yeah, the arrangements were progressing, but U.S. officials briefed that the talks basically stalled. Too many disagreements, especially over Ukraine, couldn't find a path forward right now.
And speaking of Ukraine, President Trump made a call on specific military aid.
He did. It was confirmed that President Trump refused Ukraine's request for Tomahawk cruise missiles.
Tomahawks, those are long-range, high-precision, right?
Exactly. They can hit targets deep inside enemy territory. Denying them signals a definite strategic shift. The U.S. seems unwilling to provide Ukraine with those kinds of offensive, deep strike capabilities at this point.
But while that specific aid is off the table, the West is looking at using Russia's own money against it.
Precisely. There's a big push in both the European Union and the UK to figure out how to legally utilize the frozen Russian assets. We're talking about a massive amount, around $200 billion, which is about $213 billion US dollars.
Frozen since the invasion began.
Yes. The idea is to use that money, or the proceeds generated from it, to directly fund Ukraine's defense and reconstruction. It's legally complicated, arguments about sovereign assets, but the political will seems strong in Brussels and London. It would be a huge financial boost for Kyiv if they can make it work.
And on the ground, the war continues, with worrying attacks on infrastructure.
Yes, unfortunately. There's been an uptick in Russian strikes targeting Ukraine's energy grid again, causing blackouts. One recent attack hit the Chernihiv region.
Chernihiv. Isn't that near Chernobyl?
It is relatively close to the decommissioned Chernobyl nuclear power plant, yes, which just highlights the ongoing risks whenever you have active conflict near sensitive sites like that. Attacks on the grid there are particularly concerning.
Okay, let's cross the Atlantic. U.S. military operations in the Caribbean are causing some diplomatic waves aimed at Venezuela.
That's the situation. The U.S. military has been conducting operations, they say, to disrupt drug trafficking and potential terrorism links originating from Venezuela.
And the region isn't happy about it.
Not uniformly, no. There's been significant backlash. Colombia actually recalled its ambassador from Washington in protest. It puts a real strain on regional cooperation, particularly CARICOM, the Caribbean community, which tries to maintain the area as a zone of peace.
So it's seen as U.S. overreach by some.
By many, yes. While some countries might quietly or even openly, like Trinidad and Tobago did with conditions, support cracking down on trafficking, the unilateral military action raises sovereignty concerns for a lot of Latin American nations.
And there was an incident involving Ecuador pushing back.
Yes, an interesting case of local accountability. Ecuador authorities investigated a survivor from a suspected drug-running submersible vessel that had been targeted in a U.S. strike.
Yeah.
They found no evidence the individual was involved in criminal activity and released him. It raises questions, about the rules of engagement, potential collateral damage, and the oversight of these kinds of U.S. operations outside declared war zones.
Okay, quick stops in Asia and Europe for major political shifts. Japan has a new leader.
A historic one. Japan elected Takachi as its first female prime minister. She's known as an ultra-conservative figure.
Ultra-conservative. What's her platform?
Very much a Japan-first approach, focused on economic nationalism, boosting national defense. It's a huge symbolic change having a woman lead the country, but she faces challenges immediately. Her ruling coalition is fragile after a partner party left, and her socially conservative views are controversial for many in Japan.
And in France, a former leader is actually going to prison.
Yes, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has begun serving a 5-year prison sentence at La Santé prison in Paris.
This is for the campaign finance scandal, the Libyan money.
That's the one, the Libyan case. He was convicted of illegally funding his 2007 presidential campaign with money from Muammar Gaddafi's regime in Libya. It's a major fall, though it's worth noting he still has considerable support among right-wing voters in France.
Accountability catching up years later. Okay, let's turn to the global economy, segment 4. Global economic stress and critical supply chains. And this starts with something fundamental. Rocks. Or rather, minerals.
Absolutely. The critical minerals war is not an exaggeration. We're talking about rare earth elements, lithium, cobalt, the stuff you absolutely need for EV batteries, wind turbines, smartphones, advanced weapon systems. The U.S. has a list of 50 critical raw materials, CRMs, it deems essential.
But China holds most of the cards here, right?
Overwhelmingly so. China currently controls something like 70% of the world's mining of rare earths and maybe 90% of the processing. That processing step is key. It's dirty, complex work.
So even if the U.S. mines more, or allies with places like Australia, breaking that dependency takes time.
A long time. Analysts say at least a decade, probably more, for the U.S. and its partners to build up sufficient alternative processing capacity. It's a huge strategic vulnerability.
And this vulnerability is playing out in domestic policy debates. The Trump administration canceled some major energy grants.
It did. The Department of Energy, the DOE, confirmed it canceled over $700 million in manufacturing grants. These were specifically aimed at boosting U.S. production of things like advanced batteries and supporting other green energy projects.
Okay, so what's the reaction? Critics must be furious.
Oh, absolutely. Critics argue this is incredibly short-sighted. They say it kills green innovation, slows down the energy transition, and ultimately hurts America's competitiveness in these vital future industries, basically handing an advantage back to competitors like China.
And the administration's reasoning. Why cancel them?
The argument from supporters centers on fiscal responsibility and market principles. They see these grants as unnecessary government spending that distorts the free market. The idea is to prioritize deregulation, let the market decide which technologies win, and focus on immediate economic benefits rather than long-term government-subsidized tech bets.
It's a fundamental difference in philosophy about the government's role in shaping the economy.
Exactly. A real ideological clash.
Okay, let's look at broader economic indicators. China's growth slowing down.
Definitely. Official figures show China's economy grew by only 4.8% in the last reporting period. That's the slowest rate in about a year.
Wow, a slowdown.
It seems to be a combination of things. The ongoing trade friction with the U.S. is hurting exports, but there are also internal issues, significant debt problems, and particularly weak consumer demand domestically. People just aren't spending as much. It makes hitting their long-term growth targets much harder.
And across the globe, the UK is facing debt problems too.
Yes, the UK government recorded its highest September borrowing figures in 5 years. And the main driver isn't new spending programs, it's the rising cost of servicing the existing national debt.
Interest payments are going up that much.
They're skyrocketing. And crucially, they're rising faster than tax revenues are increasing. That creates a really difficult long-term fiscal picture. Questions about sustainability.
Meanwhile, in South America, Argentina is trying to stop its currency from collapsing.
They're taking drastic action. Argentina secured a huge $20 billion currency swap line with the U.S. Treasury.
A swap line, what does that do?
It basically allows Argentina's central bank to borrow U.S. dollars using its own pesos as collateral, providing temporary access to hard currency to defend the peso, which has been plummeting ahead of their elections.
But there are strings attached, presumably.
Oh, definitely. The deal is contingent on Argentina implementing strict austerity measures and committing to significant economic reforms, trying to rebuild reserves, control spending, manage the exchange rate. It's emergency support, but demands tough medicine.
So lots of economic stress globally. But the U.S. stock market saw a big jump, driven by Apple.
Yeah, quite a contrast. The Dow Jones Industrial Average shot up over 500 points recently, and a huge part of that was Apple's stock hitting an all-time high.
Getting close to that $4 trillion valuation.
And inching closer, yeah. The optimism seems fueled by really strong demand, or anticipated demand, for the upcoming iPhone 17. It suggests consumer appetite for premium tech is still very strong, at least for Apple.
But not every big company initiative is working out. General Motors is pulling back on electric vans.
That's right. GM confirmed they're discontinuing production of their Bright Drop electric delivery vans. This was a big bet on the commercial EV market, aimed at companies like Amazon or FedEx for last-mile delivery.
What went wrong?
It seems they just didn't get the fleet orders they expected, and maybe the operational costs were higher than anticipated. The market didn't materialize as quickly or as profitably as they hoped, so they're cutting their losses and refocusing those resources elsewhere in their EV strategy.
A quick pivot when things aren't working. Okay, and finally, a very visible change in Washington, D.C. building work at the White House.
Yes, demolition has started on the east wing of the White House. They're making way for a new, large ballroom.
A new ballroom. Who's paying for that?
It's entirely privately funded, reportedly by donors and supporters of President Trump. The project cost is estimated around $250 million, and the new space is designed to hold about 1,000 guests.
That's a big upgrade in capacity for state dinners and events.
A very significant physical change to the presidential complex, yeah, both functionally and symbolically.
Okay, a new ballroom marking a new era, perhaps. Let's use that as a bridge to our final segment. Segment 5, Deep Sky, Deep Past, and Modern Accountability. Looking way back and looking at how we hold power accountable today, starting with archaeology, a lost city in Mexico.
Yes, really exciting find in Mexico's Guerrero region. Archaeologists uncovered Paso Temprano, a city that's about 1,200 years old. Dates to what they call the Epiclassic period.
What's special about this particular city?
It's unusually well preserved. They found defensive walls, big ceremonial areas, even a large central ball court, for that ancient Mesoamerican ball game.
Right.
It suggests a higher level of social organization and urban planning in that specific region during that period than maybe previously thought. Shows significant investment in defenses and civic structures.
And similar discoveries about sophisticated planning are happening in Italy, too, from the Roman era.
Exactly. Not just in Rome itself, but in smaller surrounding cities. In Gabii, which is east of Rome, they found a huge stonewater basin about 2,200 years old.
Much bigger than expected for a smaller city.
Yeah. It suggests these satellite cities weren't just functional outposts. They invested heavily in impressive infrastructure that blended utility, providing water with, monumental art and civic pride. It showed the city's status.
So infrastructure was also about making a statement back then.
Very much so. And we're getting insights into ancient economies, too, from shipwrecks off the coast of Israel. Yes, archaeologists found cargo from 3 different Iron Age shipwrecks, all relatively close together, but from slightly different times.
And the cargo tells a story.
It does. The oldest wreck mostly had local goods, things produced nearby, but the later wrecks contained more diverse stuff. Pottery, metals, maybe wine or oil imported from farther away, places like Greece and Cyprus.
So you can literally see the trade networks expanding over time.
Exactly. From local exchange to much wider Eastern Mediterranean networks. These wrecks are like snapshots of evolving commerce and cultural connections thousands of years ago.
Amazing windows into the past. Okay, let's fast forward to modern times, but stick with valuable objects and accountability. The Louvre heist. That was
Yeah.
shocking.
Truly shocking. The theft of French crown jewels from the Louvre Museum in Paris. And the speed, just 7 minutes. Experts were quoted saying it had all the hallmarks of a highly professional, well-planned operation.
And it caused a massive controversy around the museum's security chief, Dominique Buffon.
Huge controversy. Critics, particularly from more conservative circles, immediately questioned her appointment, alleging that diversity initiatives had perhaps overridden security competence.
What were the specific security failings they pointed to?
Reports mentioned things like delayed sensor responses, maybe inadequate internal audits before the theft. The argument became whether the focus on appointing the first female head of security had somehow compromised the rigorous technical expertise needed for such a high-stakes role. It sparked a global debate about balancing diversity goals with critical operational needs, especially when protecting priceless heritage.
A really tough debate with huge consequences. And a different kind of accountability pressure is building across the English Channel, involving the British royal family.
Yes, the pressure on the UK government and the royal family itself continues to grow regarding Prince Andrew. Specifically, calls to strip him of his remaining titles, like Duke of York, and potentially his residency at Royal Lodge on the Windsor estate.
This is linked to the Jeffrey Epstein fallout and new revelations.
Exactly. It's been reignited by details published in the posthumous memoir of Virginia Giuffre, one of his main accusers. Her ghostwriter revealed that Giuffre saw the removal of his titles as a crucial form of validation and accountability for victims. It keeps the spotlight firmly on his past associations and the institution's response.
And sticking with the UK and difficult issues of accountability, there was a significant development regarding the inquiry into grooming gangs.
A very sobering one. Two prominent survivors of abuse, Fiona Goddard and Eliane Reynolds, resigned from the National Inquiry Panel set up to investigate these gangs.
They resigned.
They issued statements expressing deep frustration. They felt the inquiry lacked transparency, that victims' voices weren't being properly heard or centered, and that the process wasn't effectively tackling the systemic failures that allowed the abuse to happen.
So they felt the inquiry itself wasn't serving its purpose.
That was their powerful message. The resignation was a form of protest, highlighting the immense challenge of ensuring these kinds of official inquiries are truly effective and victim-focused, rather than just institutional exercises.
A difficult reminder of how hard real accountability can be. Okay, let's end our deep dive today by looking upwards. Some celestial events for you to maybe check out.
Yeah, a couple of nice opportunities for stargazers. Looking ahead a bit, mark your calendars for October 2025. That's when Comet Lemon makes its closest approach to Earth.
And there's another one visible around the same time.
Yes, the potentially beautiful Comet Swan should also be visible then. So, a possible double comet treat for observers, especially in the northern hemisphere.
Nice. And something happening right now. A meteor shower.
Absolutely. The Orionid meteor shower is peaking right about now. This is debris left behind by the very famous Halley's Comet.
So we're seeing bits of Halley's Comet burn up. How many can you see?
If you're away from city lights in a dark sky location, you might see up to 20 meteors per hour. They're known for being quite fast, a really nice display.
Cool. And finally, a reflection from a true space pioneer.
A really powerful one from Eileen Collins. She was, of course, NASA's, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's first female space shuttle commander.
An incredible achievement. What did she reflect on?
She spoke about the intense, almost crushing pressure she felt in that role. She said she felt she absolutely could not make a mistake. Not one. Because she feared any error wouldn't just reflect on her, but would be generalized to all women, potentially hindering opportunities for others.
Wow, the weight of representing more than just yourself.
Exactly. A potent reminder of the burdens that pioneers carry, especially women breaking barriers in fields like science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM fields.
What a journey today, seriously. From quantum consciousness and dodgy cheese.
Slight chuckle, yeah, quite the mix.
All the way to geopolitical tensions near Chernobyl, that huge Dow Jones surge, the Louvre heist.
The connections, though, are striking when you lay it all out. You see the microscopic, the quantum stuff, the food science, right up against the macroscopic global conflicts, massive market shifts.
And the constant tension, right, between incredible innovation, Meta's AI feed, Claude Code for developers, and this underlying, maybe growing vulnerability, the AWS outage, the security failures.
It really crystallizes things for you, the listener, doesn't it? You see how something like national security, our reliance on China for critical minerals, is directly tied to personal health possibilities, like spotting MS years earlier. It's all interconnected through accelerating technology and the stability or instability of global systems.
Which brings us to a final thought. You mentioned those archaeologists finding that huge Roman water basin in Gaza, built not just for water, but as a statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Civic pride, social organization.
Exactly. A monumental structure reflecting their values and identity.
So it makes you wonder about our monumental constructions today. Is tearing down part of the White House for a massive, privately funded ballroom just about needing more space for parties?
Or are these huge centralized cloud data centers, the ones that can crash and take down half the internet, are they purely functional?
Or are these modern structures, physical and digital, also expressions of our collective identity, reflecting maybe our power, our priorities, perhaps even our fragility in this super-connected, increasingly complex, maybe even quantum-aware world?
It's something to think about. What structures, ancient or modern, physical or digital, best represent your identity today? What are we building that reflects who we are or who we want to be?
A question to ponder. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.
You're enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.